All right, here's a Monday thought starter just for you, and today I want to talk about minimum wage. One of the hot topics in many businesses right now is a federal minimum wage increase. I'm not getting into a discussion about how much someone should get paid, even though I do acknowledge that the minimum wage of $7.25 currently is low compared to the cost of living in many places. The Congressional Budget Office estimates an increase to $15 an hour would impact about 27 million workers and result in the loss of anywhere between 0 and 3.7 million jobs. In order to get your business ready for any increase of the minimum wage, whether it's state or federal, you have to think through several things. Let's talk about employees first. So if minimum wage was going up by $7.50 an hour, just to use a round number, what does that mean to the people that already make $15 an hour? Because the reason why there is a different level of pay is usually to account for experience or responsibility, for example. In other words, if you have a manager that makes $15 an hour and your entry-level person now makes the same thing, you also have to give the manager a raise. Do you raise them to the same amount that you raise the entry-level employee? Do you raise the manager to $22.50 because they made $7.50 more previously? Or does the manager now make $30 because that's twice the entry-level pay? Since the money has to come from somewhere, you have two choices. One, you can cut hours and positions. In other words, either you get rid of the lowest paid employee altogether, or maybe the highest paid one, or you cut their hours to minimize the impact. Either way, in order to make that work, you need to automate processes that are currently time consuming. As a matter of fact, I've been talking to companies that are looking to automate in major ways because automation is already tempting now and it will be more so in the future. You might even want to outsource some tasks. And two, you can go up on their prices. Let's talk about that. Let's say you're currently selling a hamburger for $7.50, and I use the restaurant industry because it's pretty easy to break down. So your labor goes up and the burger's now $9 even. Okay, not too bad because everybody makes more money now, except for your butcher and your baker, and everyone else that sells you ingredients is doing the same thing, and we add the increased cost of goods to the burger as well. Matter of fact, your overhead will increase too. Now we have a $12 burger. But people are still used to the old system. They're used to what you're selling being a $8 hamburger. So the $12 burger better look really good. Ultimately, the pain to your employees eating at your place is probably about the same. They can now buy a burger for a little less than what they're making an hour. But they're also working a little less or not at all, and they get no burger. Of course, there are some people that will tell you that the business should just take the extra cost of labor out of their huge profits. That's because the general public on average thinks that the business makes about 36% profit. In reality, a small business makes an average profit of about 7%, some even less. A restaurant has an average profit of 3 to 5% of sales. And just so we understand, in order for that to be average, there has to be lots of businesses that scrape by with much less. In order for your business to survive, you need to run a tight ship, especially until people get used to the new value of what things cost. Economies tend to be resilient on the macro, and on the individual scale, it's up to you to make sure the numbers are just right to prepare for a even gradual increase. And the time to do so is now, not after it happens. I've spent a lot of time with business owners going over numbers and helping them think through how a minimum wage increase would affect their business. The first responsibility of a business owner always has to be to the business. If the business isn't healthy, it can't pay anyone, if that makes sense. The same holds true if you happen to be in a state where a minimum wage increase is being discussed. Some people would just pick up and move, and that's the reason why a citywide minimum wage doesn't really work. I can move my business outside the city and be more, as they say, competitive. The solution isn't easy. I've worked with lots of small and medium-sized businesses, and their owners are not going home to swim in money. Most of them will try to pay their employees as much as they can afford while still making a living for themselves. Owners and employees are ultimately in this together, and it's not us versus them. My spouse and I have personally paid medical expenses, had cars fixed, utilities turned back on for employees at her restaurant, and sometimes before she pays herself. Now, if you want to help yourself and the economy, shop with small businesses and stay away from the Walmarts. Eat at local restaurants and not chains with hundreds of locations, because those small businesses reinvest in their communities and their dollars turn over many more times than chains and national companies that often just siphon off profits to who knows where. People get very hostile about differing opinions these days, but that's a discussion for another day. If a minimum wage increase is coming, and I would argue it will soon enough, there will be a cost associated with it, and you need to get your business ready. And that's it for your Monday Thought Starter. Of course, I'll be back later this week. Until then, I'm Tobias Wilhelm.